Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the welcome to the Babbling Pastors podcast with Michael
and Rob.
Yo, what's up, guys? This is going to be a fun month because 5 weeks in this month. The last time we had 5 weeks in a month, we did Tulip, but we're not doing that again. We are doing Christianity in relation to fill in the blank. So this week's fill in the blank is a hot topic currently, and I assume will probably still be when this podcast airs a month. Well, not even a month from now. It'll be next week. Wow. Because we're recording super late.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. It happens. Yeah.
So anyway, it'll still be
because we're very busy and very important people.
I'm
and so it's really hard to carve out time in our busy and important
amongst all the speaking schedules,
right? Yeah,
and the autographs, and just the one-on-one sessions with I mean,
our
look,
life coaching businesses.
Yeah. So, do you want me to coach Stephen Furtick, or do you want me to do this podcast? Okay, I think you need me to coach Stephen Furtick.
Yeah,
right?
Actually,
I'm the coach. Is
true.
No, I don't. We're not going to do that.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, so
that was completely me, not him, saying that. So
don't worry. The topic we're going to talk about today, actually, I've gotten a lot of wonderful conversations about on the internet. Anyway, actually, you might not know this. As of the recording of this podcast, and maybe still when it puts up, I haven't decided yet. My Instagram account, I've temporarily deactivated it because I got so fed up with all of the people. So yeah. So over this subject, actually. So today we're going to be talking about ethnicity and race in relation to Christianity.
Wow.
Yeah, bro. So how do you want to start this conversation? What do you want to do? How do you think you want to do this?
Are you a racist?
No. Well, it depends on who you ask, I suppose.
Ah.
I guess really that's what it comes down to, right? It doesn't matter if you are or not, it's how you're labeled. So let's go with racism. Okay, so let's back this up, right? So everybody knows where we're at in this country currently in regards to protests, riots, hashtags, organizations, things of that nature. Now, the title of this episode, though, is Christianity in relation to race and ethnicity. So I've got a couple good resources that I could point people to, but is there anything that you have off the top of your head that helped you kind of through the lens of dealing with these conversations? Yeah, there you go. The Holy Bible. In case you're on the audio version of this, he held up the Bible, the Bible, the Bible. Exactly. Yes. Excellent resource.
Yeah. I mean, quite obviously that's where the whole basis of anything like this is, the whole right and wrong thing in the first place, right? So actually the Bible does have a lot to say about all of this stuff, but I think we just have, so our North American Baptist Conference is what our church is a part of. And the regional minister, right? We're all autonomous churches, but we belong to an association. There's a regional minister, and he's kind of the mediator, pastor to the pastor kind of role. And anyway, he has a Zoom meeting still every week on Wednesdays that I'm missing because of this.
So sorry.
No, it's fine, Michael. It's fine. No, just kidding. No, but I missed last week too, but a couple of weeks ago, it was really just about this and how some of the other pastors are kind of dealing with it. And so we all get together on Zoom, and there's a pastor that is in Bismarck, which is about an hour and a half away from here, which, in Indiana is a long, long way.
Yeah.
Here, that's like where you go to the mall. So, but there's a pastor in Bismarck that actually came from pastoring in downtown Detroit at one point. And so I thought, I need to shut up and just kind of listen to him a lot, because he has a lot more insight than North Dakota. We have most of our African-American population here is literally from Africa. right? So like we
Yeah.
have Liberians and people that come over, Nigeria. But as far as people who born and raised, lived that whole life here, we don't have tons of that, specifically in Dickinson where I'm at. And so I feel like though I can speak to everything the Bible has to say, I can't speak to everything going on culturally.
Hmm.
Like as in I was there yesterday, speak to it. So I think one of the important things that we need to do as Christians is probably shut up a little bit, like, because unless you literally are living in the midst of that, like I don't know firsthand by experience, or even really by knowing someone who firsthand knows by experience, I don't know what actually goes on, right? And what the level of um, uh, actual racism and racial things that happen, I don't know. And I'm sure that it exists. I know that it
Hmm.
exists because
Hmm.
I know enough about those stories. But at what level, what they're actually dealing with, like in life on a daily basis, what it's like to be a young black person in downtown whatever city, just going to the supermarket and police driving. I don't know, because I'm not there, right? So I shouldn't pretend as a believer to understand things that I don't culturally.
Hmm.
And I think that is where, not that I can't speak into things, because scripture is clear on some of the kind of principles and stuff that get intermixed in between this, but I do need to learn to listen a lot more than I feel like I should talk when it
Hmm.
comes to that stuff. And I think that's a really, really major problem in the church, especially right now, as this, this is the topic on everybody's
Yeah.
list.
And everybody has Facebook.
Right. Yeah, and they misuse it and don't look much like Christians at all most of the time.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what I've seen a lot on as far as online. So for example, there's a lot of infighting. So if we're going to talk about Christianity specifically in relation to these things, I have seen quite a bit of infighting, right? So we'll go with Facebook first. So what I see a lot is people like it's either one extreme or the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's either like all they're posting is I'll give you an example. Somebody on my Facebook feed, somebody had a Confederate flag on their porch in town, and somebody else, because of the wonders of Facebook, saw it and then got on the community Facebook page, which is horrible. In any small community, you don't need a community Facebook page. It's like let's all meet at the restaurant and fight. Like that's what it is. So like just it's just online. And then they had posted that, and then it was just a back and forth trash dumpster fire over like, you shouldn't have this, it should be taken down, versus this is my liberty, I can do whatever I want. Now, the reason I bring that up is because both of these people would claim to be Christians, right? So you have one person on one side that's like, going to protests and holding up signs, and the other person going, I can still be a Christian and have this flag. And it was just this fight back and forth, because I think it's a definition of terms that's being misunderstood between a lot of Christians right now. Whoa, my camera almost fell over. But this idea, like, uh, we're completely putting ourselves on a side other than just saying, okay, what does the Bible say about this? How can we as Christians still hold these or seem like opposing views with one another, but still be brothers and sisters, and do this in a way that we're not, the word is escaping me here, but calling each other names, things like that.
Oh, sure.
Because,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Calling each other names.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think one of the major, major, major problems, and it plays out some, you see the ugliness of it during situations like what's going on right now, but it exists all the time, right?
Mhm.
Is this idea among Christians, specifically here, that they believe that they're Christians, but in reality and in practicality, how it works out in their life is that they're Americans and then Christians,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that is a major problem, right? For us to actually realize, no, I live in the kingdom of God,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's first, and I influence America or wherever else I happen to be. That has to
Our
be,
minds.
man, because we
I
it's
just had this conversation. Keep going, but I just want to it's amazing to me that we have the same thought and we haven't talked for a month. So keep going.
well, so I have there are people that I know and love and I know are believers that really, really struggle with this.
Mm-hmm.
We have a guy. I've learned so much about tact and like thinking before I speak, just through leading a community group for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
We have a guy that I mean, I can say this on here. I think it's not a big deal. We have one guy who leans a little bit more liberal in some of his political views, um, and he's a black man. We have someone who was in the Marine Corps for a minute, in the Air Force. He was a state trooper. He is now in the oil field. He's very, very much, wave that flag.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are times when one of them will be talking and I am thinking the whole time like,
Oh no.
stop, and and like it's just because not because I disagree even
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, it's just because like we need to think about what like is what I'm saying going to change anyone's mind? No, probably not. Is the real problem, this is going to be a big blow up if people just hear this one clip, but is racism the problem? No, because the sin is the problem. Like what
Mm-hmm.
is behind racism is a few things. It's I don't believe, if I'm a racist, I believe I hold more value than another image bearer of
Mm-hmm.
God. And frankly, um, we all come from the same mom and dad originally, right? So we're the human race. We
Mm-hmm.
just come in different crayon colors, right? I mean, at the end of the day, different cultures and all this, but it's not so. I don't think the right answer either. You hear this a lot. I don't think the right answer is I don't see color, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's stupid, right? Because yeah, you do.
Mm-hmm.
You can't honestly, like me, I'm a white dude with a short haircut and a beard, right? And if I walked down specific, I don't know the town, but if I walk down some specific areas in Chicago, people are going to see color, and I'm gonna, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's more about culture, I think,
Yeah.
and ethnicity and cultural differences than it is about race and color even.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think that we too quickly as Christians dive onto one side or another and are not very quick to just sit in a room and get to know people.
Yeah.
Like, let's have a talk. Like,
Yeah.
what's your home life like? How you doing, man? Who are you?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that's how we should that's how we should approach it anyway, just through the scriptures anyway. So for example, what I was saying about our minds being on the same wavelength, I just had a conversation Sunday with a couple guys and I was like, yeah, I said, I think what I see happening is people putting so this issue or any issue and then filtering it through, saying, okay, well, this is where I stand on the issue and I want to filter it through the Bible, rather than saying this is the Bible and that's how I'm going to filter this through it. So they're holding up whatever their belief in. I mean, you can apply this to anything. My belief on, LGBTQ, and I'm going to use verses to back up my belief on that. Or race and ethnicity, I'm going to use verses to back up my, or money, or, and we're going to talk about that too. But we're saying this is where I stand on it, so let me find verses on it. Other than saying this is where the Bible stands. Okay, well, I have to,
Hmm.
I have to submit to that. Um, And I think you make a good point too on it being very much more culture than it is anything else. Okay. Because I don't, for the most part, and this is just dealing with the people I know, it doesn't matter what skin color you are or what definition of race you are. The culture you grew up in is really how you're going to act and identify and deal with the world. So, I mean, there's people that I know that that process the world exactly like I do, but have different skin color than me. But that's because that's how we grew up. Like they grew up in the same sort of situation. So that's how you deal with it. So I think a lot of times the differences is, like you said, it's not a skin color as much as like it's how we talk, because that's where we grew up. So we use certain words or vernacular or tone because that's what we're used to. And when we interact with somebody that doesn't do those things or does it a different way, automatically we get very defensive on both sides of it. But as Christians, going back to that, I think we're called to see people how God sees them. So we're going to go, okay, I totally don't understand how you're viewing things, but like if you're a Christian, especially, I'm going to try to, I mean, you're my brother, so I'm going to try to see things the way you see things, and vice versa on this, so we can come to this common ground of everything. Even if at the end of the day, like you said with your example with the community group, like we're going to hold vastly different ideas, but a lot of those ideas come from the fact that you don't know the story that got me to this idea because you were on a totally different story than me. So let's figure out what that looked like, because we probably don't hate each other as much as you think we hate each other.
Yeah, or even disagree.
Yeah.
You know? Like there are, so I, probably not a big surprise if you've ever listened to this podcast, but I mean, politically, I obviously lean toward the right. And
You're not a Bernie bro?
I have stop that. I have a very strong, I'm very strongly opinionated when it comes to certain things. Certainly not tons of things, but like for me, I can't in good conscience, I'm not going to hold anyone else to this. It is what it is. You know, you vote you, right? But I can't vote for any human being that is for killing other human beings in the womb. Like straight up. I don't care how terrible you are at all the other stuff. If you are for life and the other guy's not, I'm voting for you. Right? Like that's just the way that I see it. I do care about the other things, right? And I think that we should certainly fight for them. But if we want to talk about any sort of racism or prejudice or like you can't think that you can't put what's going on right now above abortion, for instance, right? Like abortion has killed millions and millions and millions and millions of humans just because of what age they are or aren't yet, right? So by far, abortion in our day and age trumps any other social justice, whatever, right? By far. That is not to say that we shouldn't deal with this other stuff. Like we should. It should be a thing. It's an image of God thing, right? And other image bearers of God are not given a fair shake in some way. Yeah, we need to do it. It is a big deal. So, but I think where some of us really fail is we tend to just think that because we've seen Fox or MSNBC, depending on what side of things you're on, because we've seen enough, and both of them are garbage, frankly, but because we've seen enough of either side of this, that's what has influenced us, and we know all the facts, and we know, look, no, you don't. Like, sit down and have a conversation with people. That's the only way it changes.
Well, and I think the conversation part is the vital part in any regard. I mean, I don't care what, I mean, obviously we're talking about race and ethnicity. That is not specifically black or white or anything. I mean, that's everything. So to sit down and actually have a conversation with somebody and say, hey man, how'd you grow up? How many brothers, sisters, what your family like, what's your favorite music? I mean, just to get to know somebody, which is the part where I think social media really makes the thing explode a lot, is because it's very difficult. And I can assure you, in case anyone that's listening to this wonders and don't believe me, which you'd have to be on the internet, this is your first day on the internet, let me just tell you, you're not going to have a great conversation through text in the comment section. It's just not going to happen because inflection isn't
really not changed anyone's mind on anything in the history of the internet. Not even once.
well, I don't know, maybe a couple times it's happened.
Okay, whatever. Yeah, probably.
The point is, it's very difficult to have a conversation with somebody in that manner because you don't see their body language, you don't know what their inflection is, you don't know if they're being sarcastic or serious, you just don't know. So in like manner, like it's really hard to, and I've learned this the very hard way, to actually even have a good discussion that way. Like it's just difficult. Now, what I have seen happen are civilized people that say, hey, let's, just message each other back and forth and take everybody out of the conversation because people will jump in on comments. I have seen that be productive before. All that to say that having that conversation is vital because what happens a lot of the times when you have that, like you said, I now get to know you. I get to know why you believe this way. I get to at least have your perspective on it. Even at the end of the conversation, I don't agree with you. I at least get to figure out why you came to that conclusion. Because what often happens is as soon as somebody says, well, I believe in this thing, and there's all these assumptions that fall behind it, just that we make about people. So if somebody says, for example, all lives matter, there's some people that will automatically assume so much about those people. Or somebody says, hashtag Black Lives Matter. There's going to be all these assumptions behind that as well. Now, again, not that that's always wrong. Sometimes those assumptions are correct. But until you have that conversation, you're not going to know. So I think as Christians, one of the things we need to do, I wouldn't shy away from difficult conversations. I think those are important. If anybody has a voice in it, it should be the Bible, because if not, it's going to lead you down a pretty bad. You're not going to have a base. You're not going to have a standard. But you got to have those conversations in a mature way, right? So if you claim to be a Christian, don't be the one that's setting everything on like fire in the comment section or in the discussion, right? Because that's not helpful.
This is going to sound really pastory of me.
Oh, please. Yes. That's what you do.
But if I'm on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, pick one, right? If I'm on social media and, in the comments section, whatever, if I'm going to do something, no matter what it is, and this is true even in conversation, like face-to-face talking about stuff like this, in everything that I do, what is my chief goal supposed to be as a believer? To glorify God, right? And if I'm going to claim the name of Christ, right? If I'm going to say Jesus is my King, I'm submitting to him, then to have conversations that are filled with animosity, fighting, bickering, just blowing steam off, which seems to me to be the majority of this stuff. Mm-hmm. It's not productive on a non-Christian level. It's not productive. And specifically when you throw the word Christian in there, when I've submitted to Christ, then I better be thinking in all of these conversations I'm going to engage in, how can I most clearly and best glorify God and bring him fame, and people see him in my conversation and behavior. Mm-hmm. Probably if people went into it like that, there wouldn't be half of the crap as there is online, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. It wouldn't be as big of a thing. Mm-hmm. People go in with their preconceived notions, and it's not about God at all, as much as it's about just picking a side, or political sides, or America, and that's not Christian. That's not Christianity. That's not a life that is submitted to Jesus first as their King. It's just not.
Gotcha. So here, Pastor Rob, I have a follow-up for you. Okay. So how do you think, or do you think, because this could be just an absolute no, flat out, but how do you think Christians should engage with these topics online, if at all, as far as entering into them? So let's say, this is this is my question that I have, so I'm interested in your feedback. So how do you say, okay, well, I see an issue that's happening, let's say within the church, and I want to address it. how best do you think that should be done online? Because that's a whole different thing than on in person.
Yeah. And the first thing that I would say is not online.
There you go.
Honestly,
Okay.
if you want the most effective thing, let's look at scripture, right? They didn't have the internet, right?
Yeah.
But they had letters, they had ways that they got messages to people. And so what do you see? Of course, Paul wrote letters. That's what the New Testament is, most of it, right? Letters from these apostles to churches. And some of them were very, you foolish Galatians. Some of them were very like attacking things that were going bad. So there's a place for that, for sure. And so to that end is I think we have to utilize the knowledge that we see in those particular instances, because that's kind of the, even in counseling somebody or talking to somebody about anything that might be controversial, or when you're going to have to talk to someone about some sort of sin going on, that you don't start by engaging and saying, listen, jerkwad, like this, I'm seeing this going on in your life, you need to knock it off, or we're going to have you before the elders, right? Like that's not productive, right? And that's what you see online. Is that kind of attitude. So you ask, what's the right way to do it? I guess I don't know. It's going to depend on your personality, your context, what your presence is online. Like for me, I don't really have an online presence. Whatever is piggybacking off
You're
of this
so famous on this.
Yeah, but whatever the reaches of this podcast, that's it, right? Like that's as famous as I am, right? But so for me, if I really started engaging, people would just kind of think, okay, who's this joker, right? So I think the most effect that any one human can have is with the other humans around them, right? So what am I teaching my own kids? What does my family life look like? How do we engage with other races and ethnicities and culture in our own town? What do I preach from my pulpit? It's about my context physically first. And it has to be, because this is where God has me on purpose for a reason. However, if you have online presence, if you have something that people will listen and find meaning in or whatever, if there can be weight put to you, then I think you utilize the formula that Paul uses in his letters, which is, don't come out of the gate with accusation and I know everything, but come out of the gate with, hey, this is me. Let's be thankful for, like Paul does a lot of complimenting and thanking God first and foremost for our brotherhood and who we are together and what God has done in the gospel. And then he dives into, maybe you shouldn't sleep with your cousin, right? Or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
Sorry. I'm gonna have to take a minute with that one. I can just see Paul in a pastoral saying, hey guys, I'm really thankful for you guys. I pray for you on a daily basis. I just need to touch on it real quick. Y'all are related and you shouldn't be sleeping together, is all I'm saying. Well, that was a soft intro. Okay.
Yeah. But there's something to be said about that. Like that formula is still the formula that you need to use in face-to-face conversation if you're dealing with something that's going to be controversial or difficult. Don't start by lighting people up because you disagree. Just don't. And that's what you see online. Instead of, let's have an actual conversation. And that starts with us both doing some disarming sort of things, right? Like I have to preach about divorce this week. That could have explosive, depending on how I address it, there will either be people that leave the church or people that leave that week with a better understanding of things. Right. And
because that comes up with a lot of baggage for some people.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And I guarantee you there's not going to be one butt in a seat Sunday that hasn't been touched, at least in some way, by divorce. just whether it was mom and dad or you or brother and sister or your children or what, I mean, everybody's been touched by this or watched it happen in front of them in some way. So it could really be explosive, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I go into it, like the whole introduction to my sermon is, I don't have it completed yet, but it's probably going to be a lot of, look, this is what traditionally we've kind of how the church has treated this. This is,
Mm-hmm.
you got to go into it in a disarming way, not in a load your guns and let's do this way, right?
Gotcha. That's great advice.
Same face to face or online. It's
Gotcha.
harder online.
Yeah. So I think I just won't have an Instagram page anymore. I think. No, I'm joking. So, has there been any resources that you've had? Obviously, we've pointed out the scripture being the base, the standard, the foundation of this. Is there anything that you have watched, read, seen that other people could access that you go, I found this really helpful too? Oh, hey, he's getting some books, y'all.
No, so where I live, it is not so much African American racism,
Mm-hmm.
is Native American racism,
Oh, yeah.
but very similar in how it all plays out within the gospel, right? It's the same sort of background, same sort of struggle,
Mm-hmm.
sort of prejudice. And this was recommended to me. I'm not all the way through it, but
The White Man's Gospel. Who's that by?
Craig Stephen Smith
Okay.
is a Native American, I think, from reading. Anyway, but it's I think, man, anything you can get your hands on, but I think you should probably have a mixture. Like, one thing, don't dive into Black Lives Matter stupid. Go to their website, read all their stuff,
Mm-hmm.
engage with a couple of people, whether it be online or not, who maybe are a part of it or who come from that background or who get it. But that, I think, know what you're talking about, and no matter what the resources are. And I think, like for us, this is a bigger thing. The Native American community is like straight up, there's racism on both sides,
Yeah.
a lot of it, and we see the effects of that all the time, where I'm at. And so it's, I guess I don't have a lot of specific resources necessarily,
Mm-hmm.
other than to say, like, don't be afraid to read things from the other side of, because, in fact, I would do that more because I already have my opinion. And I think too often we pick up resources or follow resources that only agree with our opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And every once in a while, a guy like me should tune in to CNN, as long as you can stand it, because they come from a non-religious,
Yeah.
Jesus is offensive, nobody likes God kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing, right?
So
Or
you at least know what people are thinking. Yeah.
right, you have to know what the other side is kind of coming from and where they're at, and that's going to bleed down into the resources you take in too, I think.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's a good tip. Again, another reason why I want you on this podcast with me because you bring balance and stability, my friend, with that big burly beard of yours.
Well, it's only because this isn't Coke. Kidding.
Gotcha. All right, guys. Well, that's good. I like that advice. Thank you, Pastor Rob. We appreciate that. Yeah, that's your title. You have to get used to it. That's not even like a thing. That's what your title is
Yeah, I know.
now. do,
So
you,
weird.
do you do you prefer Reverend or Pastor?
I think my title should just be, "Hey, dude."
Hey, dude.
Yeah.
Is that I didn't read that in Titus Timothy. I didn't read that as a title. Anyway, all right, good. Do you have any closing remarks, sir, other than don't be a butthead?
Be humble about where you're at. Don't think you know everything, because you don't. And I think if you can do that, you'll be a better example as a believer than 98% of any other beating heart around you. If you can just come into it humbly, understanding that such for some of you, you're all a bunch of dirtbag, black-hearted sinners, right? And God has done a miraculous work in you. That's the only reason that, you know, we're all worth the same. We all come from the same Adam and Eve. So shut up.
You know what I can tell from that comment there? You don't spend a lot of time on the internet, and I can appreciate that. Is that an accurate statement? I don't know, but my feel is that you just don't spend a lot of time on social media.
No, I don't spend a lot of time on social
There you
media.
go.
That's the crap we're talking about, to be honest with you.
Gotcha.
I get on Facebook and social media to post pictures of my family and dogs and outings, and to post scripture. That's almost exclusively it. And if I'm watching a live YouTube video, there's never a moment when I don't hide the chat.
You just don't want to see it.
Yeah, 400 million people saying things that no one even gets to read because it's so many people.
Mm-hmm.
Stupid.
Gotcha. Hey, there we go. We'll end with that. Hide the comments. Social media is stupid. Guys, we'll talk to you later. Have a great day.